joining us this morning, criminal defense attorney Lauren Stuckert. She's been with us this morning from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and joining our conversation, jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine. She's in Orlando, Florida. Susan, we've got some questions for you. Human behavior. There's a lot of bad human behavior in this one, and one of these two is exhibiting atrocious human behavior, because one of the two is lying to a level that you really, it's hard to get your head around. Either Johnny Depp is lying about all of this and still wanted to file this lawsuit. I mean, at some point he'd be like, oh, she might tell the bottle story. Maybe I better not do this. Or Amber Heard accusing him of monstrous behavior. One of the two is at a level that isn't normally seen. What would it take, what does it take for a human being to be either one of these two, the liar, the person that is here lying? Who is that person? How do you get to that point where you're able to go on the world stage like this and just tell lie after lie? Because one of them's doing exactly that.
That's true, you know, but let's go back a little bit. So when you're reading somebody, where they got today is there is some sort of history, right? So you've got his truth, her truth, and of course we've got in the middle, you know, what is truly the truth. So what I am seeing in this relationship is two things. One is we've got a Johnny Depp, when he goes inside, he's very introverted and he stonewalls her, okay? So this is where we're seeing with his head down, that's a form of stonewalling. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to pay attention. You don't have my attention. What happens then, Amber then amplifies her behavior. So she becomes a bit more histrionic. So you can see how explosive this relationship is. But ultimately, this jury has to decipher all of that and determine who's being more truthful than the other. Now, these are not human behavior experts. They're not people that are trained on this jury. Although I believe that they will be able to sift through enough of this information to determine who truly is the liar. And I believe I have that answer.
Who is it?
Amber Heard.
Oh.
She is amplifying. She is amplifying all of these experiences, so she's becoming much more histrionic. Her expressions in her facial expressions are so amplified that it becomes, the truth becomes distorted. So when a person has to amplify and just the information becomes more distorted, it starts to crumble and that starts to fall apart. Then there's the other piece of it, not just the body language, but also the language. So I've been trained very extensively in statement analysis, and at my company, the Human Behavior Academy and the Human Behavior Lab, I have experts that we pull in and we analyze information based on testimonies like this. We do statement analysis, voice stress analysis, and behavioral analysis. And if you combine all those three modalities together, those different specialties, then you can find the distortions in the language. And there is a lot of distorted language in Amber Heard's testimony. So is she absolutely lying through the whole story? No, she's not, because most of what people tell you is truthful and fragments of it are distorted. They skip over, they minimize, and they remove all of the damaging information. But that jury has to figure this out.
Lauren, apparently you have to figure it out too, because you believed Amber Heard, and your reaction to what Susan has opined.
And I would also acknowledge I'm absolutely not an expert in human behavior. It's not that I believe everything that she's saying, but I definitely feel truth coming out of her. I don't think that she's making this all up. As I said before, in these types of situations where you have two vastly different versions of what occurred, I think it's very possible that both Miss Heard and Mr. Depp might somehow think that they are both entirely telling the truth. What I think is problematic for Mr. Depp, though, is, again, that his truth is colored by excessive alcohol and drugs. And I also find his behavior, you know, if I'm just a juror, someone without the expertise that Ms. Constantine has, I'm watching Ms. Heard tell this very emotional, horrible, event that had occurred. And, Mr. Depp is looking down and won't make eye contact. If you're innocent, if you didn't actually do this to her, look her in the eye and stand your ground and make very clear that she is lying. He's fidgety. He's rubbing his nose. He's doing just things that don't sit well with me. And I would consider myself more to be akin to the lay people that are sitting on that jury than an expert in the field.
Susan, what about that? A lot of talk about Johnny Depp's refusal to look at Amber, and you could see, maybe his rationale, he's been told to do that, or he doesn't want to do it. Should he change strategy?
Yes, he should. But this is the problem in the dynamics of the relationship. So if you look at Dr. Gottman's work in the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, there are 4 different criteria that we look for in a relationship that's going to deteriorate and also can predict whether somebody is going to be divorced after, I think, 9 or 10 years. But anyway, 2 of the bigger ones is criticism. We've got stonewalling. We have contempt. I see this often between the 2 of them. So what Johnny Depp is doing, he is stonewalling. When I see this is what was happening in their relationship. So what should he be doing to look more empathetic or credible, or like, as your other expert said, stand his ground? He needs to be making periodic glances her direction and look like he's interested, because right now what he's doing is he's cutting her off, which doesn't look good for Johnny Depp.
Should he glare at her or react with, are you kidding me, while she's going into some of the details of these stories that make him look like a complete monster?
Yeah, well, see, there's 2 different ways to look at it. He could lean back and go, she is so full of baloney. She's storytelling. This is typical histrionic behavior. Or he could lean forward and make more direct eye contact. We saw this in Clinton. I did not have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. What did he do? He looked into the camera, and he looked right into the camera to tell the public, the people, what he didn't do. But see, what happens with this, when you're staring somebody down, this is not good. We don't want the stalker eyes, right? We don't want somebody piercing in and the eyes narrowed with anger and disdain, because all we're seeing here play out is what was actually happening behind the scenes. So what we're seeing here overall, and the demeanors of both of them, there was a lot of dangerous emotions that were going on. I believe both of them were at that 95% in their relationship. All it took was 5% for them to flip out. And when I'm watching Amber Heard, I just got to bring this up. When you're watching her expressions, and they're very amplified, they're extreme. So they're hyper. There's a lot of hyper arousal going on here. But you see a lot of scorn in her mouth. She does a lot of this. This is a scorned woman. What this is all about is anger, disgust, and mixed with sadness. She didn't get out of the relationship what she wanted. She's ticked off, and he has completely removed himself, and he's like, hands up, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with it.
Fascinating. We're step aside, take a break. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Lauren Stuckert in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine in Orlando, Florida. What do you take, Susan, out of that clip? One thing that stood out to me is she mentions the bottles. That she sees those, and then she added a little thing where, he's been painting with his finger, and there were lots of paintbrushes around. Well, duh, he wasn't looking for a paintbrush. He was writing in blood with his finger. What did you take away?
Well, I watched her demeanor through the whole thing. What I'm looking at is, what was the question was asked, and how does she respond to it? It's what we call stimulus, okay? And so I'm watching her as she is describing this entire event when she woke up, and she does use her hand gestures when she's illustrating what she saw, which are mostly in sync of what she is stating. But to your point, when she states that she wakes up in the morning and she sees all this stuff that's on the walls are a mess, and all these different colors and so forth. I mean, you know that she's a painter, but you see this expression of disgust, okay? So it's not one of shock and awe. See, I would have expected, like, I came downstairs with eyes wide open, lids more frozen, like, I can't believe what I saw. Instead, what I see is disgust. And disgust is like I'm looking at something and you're sickened by it. Okay, so could that correlate? Yes, it could. So I believe that part of what she's saying is truthful. It's just I don't believe that it happened the way she said it did.
Lauren, the jury in this case, 6 men and 3 women. Do you think, and you know, we'll ask Susan too, she's a jury consultant, but you're an attorney, you pick juries all the time. Do you think at this point where we're, you know, it used to be years ago, you know, you'd go for men for certain things and women for certain things. Is that, in your opinion, 6 men, 3 women, 7 of them will deliberate? Does that matter, the gender on a jury like this, in a case like this?
Possible that is a factor that might have some sort of influence, but more so it's what have these jurors' life experiences included that's going to make them gravitate towards believing one version of events over the other, that of Mr. Depp's or that of Mr. Heard's. You know, and that's why we have such extensive voir dire processes. You want to get the best possible jurors for each particular case, and each side has their own motives for what characteristics they want those individuals to have. But ultimately, you know, what the law requires the process to do, hopefully, is get those that are going to be the most neutral, the ones that are going to be the most objective in interpreting all of this evidence and testimony that they have seen and coming to the right conclusion as the law instructs them to. So if these are women who, if any of these women have been in anything akin to an emotionally abusive or physically abusive relationship, that's going to be very helpful towards Miss Heard's case and what this determination ends up being. To the contrary, if these women or men, if any of them have been in a situation where someone has pointed a finger at them or arguably wrongfully accused them of something, then they might be more likely to side with Mr. Depp's version of events. Ultimately, of course, though, it's going to be about the law.
Right. Susan, some people have pointed out saying, well, I'm a DV victim, and I see right through Amber Heard. The experience of being a domestic abuse victim could cut both ways.
Yeah, it can go both ways. And to the point of your other guest, a lot of what she's stating is right on point. And then I would just like to add to that, you know, in jury selection, it is really more deselection, right? Basically what your guest was saying is that we want to find the most neutral jurors possible. But there's also another component of it. Demographics do matter, but they don't matter entirely. So we do know that, you know, as a trial consultant, we're going to do a lot of background information to find out how people, male or female, in different ethnicities and basic backgrounds of what they do for a living, whether they have children, and if they have domestic violence in their background, or how they feel about police officers, all really ties into whether a person is more egalitarian or authoritarian, whether one's quicker to convict rather than to acquit. So there's a lot of juror research that goes into it, and Walter Abbott was one of them when he developed the Juror Rater. I personally started in this business using an AI technology that was rating jurors based on demographic factors. And that was where I created a strike list. Okay, these certain people have a propensity to be more authoritarian versus egalitarian. And then, as your guest was saying, you take in all of their life experiences. That's what voir dire is, gathering information to find out about their background and how that could be projected on their client. So it's a very, very complex process. It's not easy. It's not just picking a jury, male or female, background and all of that, and what they say matters.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And this jury does trend a little younger. One might think that could be a factor as well. We need to slip in a break here. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Lauren Stuckert in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine in Orlando, Florida. Lauren, this shift in her story saying that, you know, she was meek Amber, and then boom, now I'm going at it. She needed this, did she not, to explain away the tapes, because we hear her being very aggressive. This is a way to, and this is, you know, what she says happened. She did have a bit of a shift in her mindset, and for the jury, it's imperative that she has an explanation for her aggressive tone on some of the audio that we've heard.
Yes, definitely. I mean, what this was a toxic, volatile relationship. And she was going to be reactive at certain points and lose her cool, and not this calm angel that, you know, Attorney Depp's legal team is trying to say that she's trying to make it out to be. She needed to express some accountability for her behavior in the situation. You know, there's no way that anybody's going to believe that she just sat there, you know, quiet, perfectly still when these encounters are going on. So I think, like I said before, it really just, the level of detail that she is able to speak to as it relates to all of these incidents, and whether some of them are exaggerated more than others, you know, that's going to be a determination for the jury to make an evaluation of all of the evidence. But, you know, I think her version of events really tells a fuller story, whereas Johnny Depp's testimony was really all limited to the same narrative drive. I didn't do this. This is a lie. Everything I say is going to be very measured in communicating that to these jurors.
Susan, if you don't believe a portion of Amber Heard, if you're a human being, and these jurors are human beings, and you study human behavior, is it a possibility that people think, ooh, I don't believe this little thing, and then you throw out her as being credible, where Lauren's point is, yeah, she might be, you know, acting it up a little bit. She's an actress. She's maybe embellishing a little bit, but the core of it is all true. Does she run the risk of one little embellishment can turn a person off, and then she becomes discounted?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, you know, I just got in training over at CrimeCon for 3 days. And one of the things that we talked about was, how do you believe what somebody says to be true or not? And when somebody bolsters and fabricates, does that diminish their entire testimony? And that really depends on that particular juror. Well, one juror that's more of a feeling juror say, you know, I believe that part of that was true. I do believe that happened. I can sense it. I can feel the authenticity in her voice and her reactions. And others might go, oh, no, she lied, so everything is off. She's got to bolster and lie. Here's where I have a problem with. What I have a problem with is that if it were true, all of it were true, you don't need to fabricate, you don't need to bolster, you don't need to add additional information. But that's what I see here. So can a juror separate that stuff out? Not necessarily. I think that when you get back into deliberations, that all of them are going to get together and they're going to bring out different aspects of the case, and then together, collaboratively, they'll come out what they believe to be the jury's truth about what happened.
Lauren, it takes two to tango, and Amber Heard has not taken any response, hasn't accepted anything in terms of the drug use. I mean, they were both using drugs in many of these occasions, and that was established with Johnny, not only Johnny Depp, but his other witnesses. Is that a problem, that if she's trying too hard?
Well, and really, cross-examination is going to be very, very telling, because, you know, right now she's prepared for, you know, to give the answers to the questions that are, you know, being given to her. I don't know if she's fully rehearsed everything, but her defense team has certainly thoroughly prepared her for the line of questioning that she's endured thus far. Cross-examination, and I note that it's this, you know, woman who has appeared to be semi-adversarial in her, at least as far as her, you know, constant objecting goes. You know, we'll have to see what style she uses and how adversarial it gets. But if if Miss Heard is lying to any degree in her testimony on direct examination, this lawyer should be able to expose that in the cross. And, you know, as difficult as I think her testimony has been to watch, just recounting all of the incidents that had occurred between the two of them, this cross-examination is going to be, absolutely horrible to hear, I think. And I don't think it's going to be very pretty. It will likely be entertaining for many viewers, though.
Yeah, final word, yes or no, Susan, as we run out of time here, will she be able to withstand the cross, or is this where, if, like you say, she might be less than truthful, is exposed?
I think that she's going to be caught off guard, and I think that she's going to have a hard time handling the cross-examination. It's going to be brutal.
Susan Constantine, Lauren Stuckert, enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much for your expertise and your time on this Friday. We appreciate it.